Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Yeah, I still have a couple of these left. Today, we're going to be going over one that I finally managed to get my hands on. No, not the grandfather. No, the Lidless Wall. The Lidless Wall is a very interesting, unique item for the Necromancer, and it's pretty honestly really good. If you've been playing the Abattoir of Zir recently, you may have needed additional survivability, and having the Lidless Wall is definitely a very good way to add additional survivability onto your character. Let's go over the unique item together and let's talk about it, shall we? So first off, the Lidless Wall is a shield, so it is in a very unique position, being a offhand shield slot. And shields actually socket with defensive gems, not offensive gems. So you can put a sapphire or a ruby in there and get additional life or additional fortification. Depends on what you're going for. Because it is a shield, it also has armor now, which is something that they added. 704 armor there, which is certainly not terrible. And then on top of that, it also has a 60% blocked damage reduction with a 20% block chance. So you have a 20% chance to block 60% of the incoming damage, which is certainly not terrible. On top of this, it doesn't really have its own damage output specifically per se. Instead, what it does is it actually scales based off of your weapon. So it gives you basically 80% of the main hand weapon damage when you put that on. So it's going to automatically scale to your weapon. So if you have a really nice weapon, it's going to scale really well. If you have a really crappy weapon, it's going to scale really poorly. It's not going to give you the full damage bonus, though. If you were to put on, say, like a really good two-hander, for instance, you're probably going to get a better damage bonus than you would with the Lidless Wall. And same thing with like a focus or something like that. If you put a focus there instead of a shield, you're going to get better damage out of that as well. But the thing about the Lidless is it's a much more defensive option, a much more tanky option. It's a shield. It gives you, obviously, the blocking chance. And on top of that, it gives you some armor. And there's some other various things that you can get on shields that you can't get on focuses either. So it's kind of nice. Now, the Lidless Wall does have some pretty nice effects. It does give you from 6.6 to 15% increased attack speed, which is pretty nice. It's always nice to have more attack speed. The faster you can attack, the better. And it also has a lucky hit chance of up to a 5% chance to restore 16.5% primary resource. So 10.5 to 21% is the cap there. And that's a pretty hefty amount of additional resource that you can definitely get back. We also have a pretty hefty amount of life on here of 605 to 1,310. And then on top of this, it also has maximum essence, which is really, really handy for a lot of builds. It does vary between 8 to 20, so you might have to get a decent one, maybe farm this for a while until you get one that's good stats. But in general, that 20 maximum essence can come in really handy because, of course, there's a couple different ways that necromancers can scale damage based on maximum essence. First off is the ossified essence passive, which gives you 0.5% times increased damage for each point of essence you have over 50, which means that you basically get an additional 10% times multiplier there from the 20 that it would give you. On top of that, there's also every 100 essence you spend reduces the cooldowns of your bone skills, so the more essence you have, the more you can spend, and so forth and so on. And I think there's another one in here, I can't remember. I know that the aspect also scales with this, though, which is the duration aspect. This is the ossified essence key passive, also increases critical strike damage of your bone skills by 1% times per essence above 50. So you get an additional bonus there, another 20% times bonus there with the critical strike damage. So in general, having the additional essence on there is very handy for the Necromancer, and if you're using bone builds with the ossified essence and the serration aspect, you're going to get a good effect out of this. Also, on top of this, if you happen to be using Bone Spirit also gives you a 3% times bonus for each point of essence that you have above on casting. So there's another, 60% times there from the 20 essence that you get. So definitely a lot of various ways that you can use that maximum essence to your advantage. On top of this, we also have the special effect, and the special effect is pretty crazy. It's lucky hit while you have an active Bone Storm, so you do have to have a Bone Storm active to make this happen. There is a 15 or 5 to 25%, it does vary, 25% chance to spawn an additional Bone Storm when you hit an enemy that is outside of the Bone Storm that you're currently in. So, you know, if you're using Bone Storm and they're standing inside that Bone Storm, you'd have to hit somebody that's outside of the Bone Storm to actually have the effect happen, so keep that in mind. Now, I have noticed, however, that the bone storms that are spawned from this lidless wall also count as the while we have bone storm active. So it's not like you have to have this bone storm active. You just have to have a bone storm active. And as long as you have a bone storm active, then you can still get a % chance to spawn the next one. And as long as you have one running at any given time, then you're good. Now, this bone storm actually spawns at the location of the monster that you hit, not at your location, which is kind of nice. And then on top of that, if you have sacrifice bonuses, each sacrifice bonus increases the chance by 25%, and the total additional bone storms you can have by +1. So you end up with a pretty decent % chance, and a large number of bone storms that you can have active at any given time. So let me just give you an example of how this works. So if I were to stand over here out of range, use my bone storm, and start attacking, very quickly you'll notice I can get usually a bone storm to spawn. Oh man, really? I'm just not going to get one? That's embarrassing. Maybe it doesn't work on the training dummies? Huh. I would think it would work on the training dummies. Let's try again. I mean, if it doesn't work on the training dummies, we can always go outside. I tested it outside earlier, but I didn't test it on the training dummies. I think the training dummies are bubkiss. Let's go test it outside on actual real monsters. On a real boy. Now, I've seen quite a few people use this one in Abattoir of Zir because it does make you really tanky. And you might be asking, well, how the hell does it make you really tanky? Well, the answer to that question lies in the aspect known as the aspect of the Shielding Storm, which I think I have the aspect of the Shielding Storm in here. I should, anyway. The aspect of the Shielding Storm gives you a barrier every single time you hit a monster with Bone Storm. It basically just gives you a massive amount of damage reduction. The damage reduction that you can get from this is insane, considering each Bone Storm can obviously be hitting targets. You get 5% from each individual one. And let me see if I got the Shielding Storm in here. I should have a Shielding Storm. I always hang on to at least one or two Shielding Storms, but maybe I don't have one right now. I've got plenty of the Osseous Gale, which is the other nice one for Bone Storm, which consumes corpses and extends the duration. Although I don't really think that one's necessary with this particular build, because obviously you've got... I can't believe I don't have a 5% damage barrier. Now, it is a little bit hard to get your hands on the 5%er. It does vary. I think it's like 2% to 5%. Here we go. Here's a nice one. So, aspect of the Shielding Storm. This one is each time the Bone Storm damages an enemy, gain a barrier equal to 5% of your base life for 10 seconds. So, let me just go ahead and... do I already have it? I already have it on my character, too. Well, good. Alright, so let's go test this out here on the real monsters so I can actually show you how this works. I guess the frickin' lucky hit just isn't proccing on the training dummies. Or I'm just getting extremely unlucky, which also could be the case. With lucky hits, sometimes you just get really unlucky. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. Yeah. You know, I'm a big dummy. I didn't actually equip the shield. See, you know, that just goes to show you. And I'm going to leave that in the video, too, for humbling reasons. For absolute ridiculous humbling reasons. That everyone makes mistakes, including me. So let's go ahead and do this now that we actually have the correct thing out. So as you can see here, we get our Bone Storms are now spawning on the targets. All we really have to do is just hit the targets. We're getting all the Bone Storms, and as long as any Bone Storm is active, and this is something that I've noticed, you have a % chance to spawn another Bone Storm. So as you can see, I don't have to actually have the ultimate active for the Bone Storms to constantly be spawning. And as you can see, my barrier amount is absolutely insane because every single time the Bone Storms are hitting the monsters, it's stacking that barrier on me constantly, making me extremely, extremely tanky. And it's a really, really tanky piece of equipment. If you're looking to increase your tank ability at all, if you're trying to make your character, you know, a little less susceptible in the Abattoir's ear, maybe, Lidless Wall is actually a pretty interesting option. On top of this, there's also other reasons why having Bone Storm up constantly is definitely very nice. I mean, first off, let's take a look at Bone Storm. Bone Storm has quite a few nice effects to it. It has your damage reduction is increased by 15% while Bone Storm is active, which means that having multiple Bone Storms up and having it constantly be active all the time means that you have a basically nearly constant 15% damage reduction. You also have a critical strike chances increased by 20% while Bone Storm is active, so you get a 20% crit strike damage bonus while Bone Storm is active as well. You could also pair this up with the Golem. I know that you're sacrificing everything, but if you paired it up with the Golem, you can also get an additional Bone Storm around the Golem as well, which is certainly not terrible. And of course, because it's a bone skill, it does actually scale based off of things like your Ossified Essence passive, your Serration passive, and some other things. So it actually does do pretty decent damage, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's not going to hit as hard as something like Bone Spirit or Bone Spear, but the damage output from multiple Bone Storms being active all at the same time is certainly not nothing to sneeze at either. And let's go back to the training dummies. Yeah. I can't believe I forgot to put the shield on. Because I'm a big dummy. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and see how many of these we can get active going at the same time. Really? I'm not going to get any active? Maybe you can't. Oh, there we go. No, wait, there we go. There we go. So as you can see here, just multiple active all at once. And, you know, if you do it properly, you can pretty much keep them going indefinitely. And they're just going to constantly keep hitting and chunking away at the monsters. It really comes down to this shielding storm aspect, though. If you're going to utilize Lidless Wall, my suggestion is definitely utilize the shielding storm aspect with it, because it's just going to give you permanent barrier uptime. And then, obviously, since you have permanent barrier uptime, at that point you're also going to want to use the conceited aspect, which is going to give you a damage bonus while you have an active barrier. And since your barrier is going to be always up, literally always up, while you have that Lidless shield on, well, then you can have that damage bonus permanently. So that's also very nice. All in all, I think the Lidless is a very interesting and very good addition to the game. And my only sadness is that I have to choose between it and the Grandfather. Can I just like can I monkey grip the two-handed sword and put the Lidless on with the Grandfather, please? Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, guys and gals, and before I forget, the Lidless Wall does have a special chance to drop from the Lord of Zir. So if you're looking for it and you want to target farm the Lidless Wall, that's where I got mine, is I went and farmed the Lord of Zir. The Lord of Zir can be farmed with the Exquisite Bloods. Exquisite Bloods drop from the Legion events, the World Boss, and I think that's just about it. You could probably trade for them pretty easily, to be honest. I don't think a lot of people farm Lord Zir, but there are some specific items that Lord Zir drops that you might want to get your hands on. On top of that, I mean, the Lidless Wall does have a pretty big roll between 5 and 25%, and getting the 25%er would make a big difference in having more Bone Storms active at any given time, which would certainly be nice. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.